That day, I didn't even want to go on this trip. I was looking for some peace, a little space to clear my head after a shit week. People think the wilderness is some kind of retreat. It's a place to escape, sure, but it's also a reminder of how small you really are. I was on camping and hiking trip that day. I started with a couple of hours out on the trail, some good air, and maybe a few cold beers by the campfire. Simple. But then, as usual, nothing goes the way you plan. So, it's late afternoon when I set up camp near this half-trail I've hiked before, just outside of Gatlinburg. The whole area had this fog hanging low over the ground, making the place feel like it was being swallowed by the trees. Quiet, eerie. It's the kind of place you should know better than to wander into, but I wasn't thinking. I wasn't thinking about the fact that this isn't just some nature reserve, some picnic ground for families. The Smoky Mountains will take you down fast if you're not paying attention. Anyway, I run a few miles, the sweat burning in my eyes, legs getting that dull ache that means you're pushing yourself. Trail's all twisty, and as I round a bend, I see something small in the brush. I think it's just some bobcat kittens messing around, doing whatever animals do when they think no one's watching. It's cute, almost too cute. I crouch down, stupid as hell, thinking I can get closer. I'm a damn idiot for thinking this was gonna be anything but trouble. But then I see it. Not the kittens, not the tiny fuzzballs I thought I was looking at. No, what I see is a set of eyes, glaring at me from the shadows of the trees. And then, just like that, it clicks those aren't kittens, not by a long shot. It's a damn cougar. And I'm standing about 20 feet from her cubs, like some fool who walked into a trap without realizing it. I freeze. No, I don't freeze. I freeze for about half a second, and then my instincts kick in. Her cubs are still there, playing around, oblivious. But she knows. She sees me, and she's not happy about it. A rustle from the brush, and then there she is. The mother cougar. She steps out of the trees, massive, a shadow that moves with terrifying grace. I almost don't see her until she's right there, right in front of me. She's big, and I mean big. Her muscles rippling under the sleek fur, eyes burning through me like she could tear me apart with a flick of her tail. I can feel her rage, that deadly, primal fury that's ready to explode. The second she locks eyes with me, my heart stops. She's sizing me up, figuring out if I'm worth the trouble. Her growl is low, rumbling deep in her chest. I've been around wild animals before: bears, wolves, deer. But this is different. This is no animal you just talk to and hope it runs off. This is a killer, and right now I'm just prey. I don't move. If I do, I'm dead. Simple as that. I do the only thing I can do. I stand still, holding my ground. If I run, that's it. She's gonna be on me in seconds. She's fast, strong. I try to stay calm, try to keep my breath even. Every step I take back feels like I'm walking through mud, slow and painful, like I'm losing time, like I'm giving her the opportunity to strike. She doesn't charge right away. She takes her time, sizing me up. I keep backing up, careful. One step at a time. The ground is uneven, roots poking out, rocks slipping underfoot. I can't afford to trip. Then it happens. She lets out a sharp hiss, and then she charges. I don't have time to think. My heart's in my throat, and I throw up my arms instinctively. She's on me before I even realize what I'm doing. I scream. I need to make a sound, to remind myself that I'm still alive, still in this fight. I yell, and the cougar skids to a stop just inches from me. She's testing me. She's seeing what I'll do. I take a deep breath, trying to keep my head. She's not done with me. She knows I'm scared. I start shouting louder. Get the hell away from me. I scream. She's still there, watching me, ready to strike again. I know I'm screwed if I just stand here. I need to move, but I can't run. I need something to defend myself. I grab a rock, the biggest damn thing I can find, and I throw it at her. It hits the dirt right near her feet, but she doesn't back off. She hesitates. For a second, there's this weird silence. She growls, low and deep, and then she turns. She doesn't retreat far. She's made her point. I don't stick around to watch. When I get back to my tent, I don't sleep. Not a minute of it. The rest of the night is just me, wide awake, my mind on fire, trying to calm down, trying to shake the feeling of her eyes on me. I left the Smokies the next morning, early, just a deep, gnawing feeling that I'd barely escaped something far older and far meaner than me. The year was 2004. I had just returned from my second deployment with the Navy and was itching for some solitude. And I needed to clear my head. A solo camping trip deep into the Smoky Mountains. I wasn't looking for adventure or thrills. I just wanted to relax and get a break, a few days away from everything. I drove from Knoxville, Tennessee, into the heart of the Smokies, eventually arriving at a secluded spot by a quiet stretch of the Little Tennessee River. The area was remote, no one else around for miles. I set up camp in a patch of woods next to the water. The sun was dipping below the horizon, making long shadows across the forest as I rigged my gear for an evening of fishing. The quiet was overwhelming, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of silence. As night settled in, I got a small fire going, cooking a meal of canned beans and jerky while I reflected on my time in the service. After dinner, I grabbed my rod and decided to take the small rowboat out onto the water for a few hours. The river was wide, calm, and bathed in moonlight. I cast my line and let the boat drift lazily downstream, lost in the rhythmic motion of the water. A perfect night for fishing, if there ever was one. But that calm was shattered within an hour. It started with a strange splash, followed by an almost unnatural rustling sound coming from somewhere in the water near the boat. I glanced around, thinking maybe it was an otter or a deer taking a drink from the river. But something about it didn't sit right. My instincts kicked in. The noise wasn't random. It was too close. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just an animal nature had its way of throwing odd noises at you. But that uneasy feeling didn't go away. The ripples in the water became more pronounced. Then, suddenly, there was a loud crash. Before I could react, something massive slammed into the side of my boat with such force that I almost lost my grip. The boat rocked violently, and I was thrown off balance, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached out, instinctively, trying to steady myself, but the boat kept rocking. A few inches away from the edge, I could have gone overboard. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. I scrambled to regain my footing, my boots slipping on the wet wood of the boat. Navy training kicked in stay calm, stay focused. But my brain couldn't catch up. What the hell had just hit my boat? I scanned the water, heart racing. The darkness around me seemed to close in tighter, the silence now deafening. There was no sound, no sign of whatever had struck me. I gripped the paddle, staring into the pitch black. The only thing I could hear was my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then, a ripple. Just off to the side of the boat, the water shifted again. I could see a shadow moving beneath the surface. It was slow, at first, deliberate. My stomach tightened, and my palms grew slick with sweat. Instinctively, I grabbed the oars and began to row. It wasn't panic, not yet, but something primal was clawing at me, telling me to get out of the water. The boat shifted again, and this time I saw it. The water churned in front of me. Whatever had made that impact wasn't an otter. It wasn't a deer. It was massive, too large to be anything I had encountered before. The dark shape beneath the water began to surface, and I saw a flash of something enormous, something too big to be natural. My stomach lurched, and I froze, heart in my throat. It was hard to make out in the darkness, but I could see the outline of something large, moving beneath the surface. It wasn't a fish, not even close. My gut told me it was something else entirely. I had no weapons, no way to defend myself. I was just a man in a boat, alone in the middle of the Smoky Mountains. My military training kicked in again. Stay calm, assess the situation. I rowed harder, pulling as fast as I could toward the shore. But the ripples in the water didn't stop. Something was still out there, following me, just beneath the surface. The boat rocked again, and I heard the same eerie splashing sound, too loud, too close. What the hell was it? A massive alligator? A bear in the water? No, it was something else, something far too large to be any of those. I pulled harder on the oars, my arms burning, but the shore still seemed so far away. The boat rocked again, and this time I felt the pressure of something large pressing against the hull from below. I fought to keep my composure. Something big, circling. My body was shaking now. I had no idea what it was, but I knew one thing: it was real. It was out there. And I was just a sitting duck in this tiny boat. Finally, I reached the shoreline, but the fear didn't leave me. I jumped from the boat and dragged it onto the land, my legs unsteady beneath me. The fear had a name now. Something was out there, something far too big, far too strong to be ignored. I spent the rest of the night awake, staring into the woods. The fear didn't let up. Not even as the sky began to lighten with the first rays of dawn. The water was still, no ripples, no movement. By the time the sun had risen, I packed up quickly. I left the camp, didn't look back, and didn't stop until I was out of the forest. I still don't know what it was. I can't explain it, but there was something in that water that day. I've never been one to forget things, not easily. Some memories you can push away or pretend they never happened. This one, though, it stuck with me, lodged in my brain like a splinter that never quite heals. It was December 2007. I was 8 years old. My brother Luke was 6, and, as usual, my mom was determined to make it the best trip ever. We'd been on a handful of camping trips before, but this one felt different. It's in the Ober-Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was the snow-covered trails and the promise of adventure that filled me with a child's thrill. I remember that first day, bundled up in layers, staring at the slope and feeling a mix of excitement and dread. When I begged my mom to let Luke and me ski down a smaller hill by ourselves, she hesitated. The look she gave me wasn't the usual mom look. It was a blend of concern and indecision, but eventually she relented. "Just stay close to the edge, all right? And don't go too far." "We'll be right here," she told me, adjusting my jacket and making sure my boots were secure. I nodded, even though I felt an odd nervousness creep up my spine. I hadn't noticed it at the time, but it was there. A warning that I couldn't yet identify. I was too young to understand fear in its purest form. That would come later. I was faster, more sure-footed, my skies carving the snow beneath me with a thrill. We were alone, but the hill was small and the slope gentle. Yet, in the midst of that tranquility, I noticed something strange. Luke had stopped. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on something in the distance, his face pale and wide-eyed. "Luke, what's wrong?" I called, turning to see what had caught his attention. I couldn't see it, whatever it was he was staring at. The trees loomed large in the distance, but nothing moved. There was no wind, no sound other than our own breathing. Still, Luke's stare didn't waver. His little chest rose and fell rapidly, and his hands gripped his skis so tightly I saw something. he whispered, something in the woods. I felt a strange jolt of panic run through me, but I pushed it away, trying to remain the older, braver sibling. Come on, I said, trying to sound reassuring. There's nothing out there. But something inside me wasn't convinced. My feet moved toward Luke. I turned and looked toward the edge of the trees, where the snow thickened. That's when I saw him. A man. He stood just beyond the tree line, his figure barely visible at first, but unmistakable once I focused. He was tall, and an old jacket that looked like it had been torn apart by the elements. His boots were caked with snow, and his hair, wild and unkempt, fell over his face, partially obscuring his features. The strangest part, though, was what he held in his hands. A dead cottontail rabbit. One of its limbs seemed wrong, twisted, like an artificial appendage grafted onto its body. The man was smiling, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was wide and unsettling, like a grin carved into a mask. "Hey, kid," he called. "You want to see something pretty?" I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Something in the way he spoke, the way he looked at me, made me feel like I wasn't just an observer, but a target. "You should be careful on the hill. It gets slippery, and you might fall down. But not all falls are the same, you know. Some falls, they don't ever let you get up." I swallowed hard, my breath quickening. And before I could process what he was saying, he vanished back into the woods. Who was that?" Luke asked, trembling at my side. "I don't know," I whispered, but I had a sinking feeling that I'd never forget him. Not ever. I tried to tell my mom when we returned to the lodge. She was busy, talking to another couple, and when I mentioned the man in the woods, she dismissed it with a wave of her hand. "You're just seeing things, honey. It's cold out there. That's all." The next morning, I tried to forget about the strange encounter. Luke and I went back to the ski slopes, our mother by our side this time, but that creeping unease remained. It wasn't just the cold that gnawed at me, but the eerie silence that had settled over the mountain. And then, on our final run of the day, I saw him again. The man. The same man. He was standing on the edge of the trail, and this time his eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment I was paralyzed, unable to look away. Then he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. There was something sickening about it, something that twisted my insides. "You're so beautiful," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. "I'll meet you again someday. Don't worry. I'll be waiting." Oh my God. The words were enough to send a wave of nausea crashing over me. My heart raced, and I could feel the blood drain from my face. Before I could scream or even move, he was gone. We skied the rest of the way down in silence, my hands shaking too badly to hold on to my poles. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake. I kept seeing his face, that twisted smile again and again, and hearing his words echoing in my mind. "I'll meet you again someday." I never told anyone what happened. Not my mom, not anyone in fear. That man, the way he looked at me, the things he said, it wasn't something that just happens. There was something wrong with him, something wrong with that whole trip. That was the worst experience of my childhood, getting approached by a stranger deep in the woods. The things he said. It was creepy. In fear I couldn't even explain to anyone at the time. I still remember it. Still feel it sometimes. The story happened long before in '98. I was a stupid kid, always cocky, always getting into trouble. And that summer, I managed to screw up the only good thing I had going in my life, my relationship with Holly. It was a dumb fight. Something about me not paying enough attention to her or some other teenage nonsense. I couldn't even remember what started it, but all I knew was that I messed it up. Holly dumped me and walked away, and I was left with this burning knot in my gut. The tension at home didn't help. My dad and I barely spoke during that time, But when the silence between us became unbearable, he decided we were going on a camping trip. Said we needed some father-son bonding. Yeah, right. What I needed was for the world to leave me alone for a while. But what did I know? I was 17 and angrier than I'd ever been. So, off we went, deep into the Smoky Mountains, to some little-known patch of wilderness far away from any distractions. The first thing I noticed when we got there was how quiet it was. I swear that day there weren't any birds chirping, no buzzing insects, no rustling leaves in the wind, nothing. I remember looking at my dad, and even though he was trying to act like it was just another normal trip, I could tell he wasn't comfortable either. I guess he felt the same weirdness I did, but he wasn't about to admit it. I wasn't a little kid anymore, and he was still trying to be the tough guy, the one who knew what he was doing. He didn't want to be seen as weak. We set up camp in silence. I was supposed to be the one to get the fire going, but I wasn't in the mood. My dad handled it instead, snapping at me every now and then like he always did when things weren't going right. We didn't talk much while he worked on the fire. That night, after dinner, we sat around the fire with our backs to the trees. The whole thing felt wrong. A deep sense of dread settled in my chest. My dad didn't notice it. He was too busy trying to get me to talk about my stupid fight with Holly. But I wasn't ready to talk. Not to him. Not about her. Around midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I was wound tight, a storm inside me just waiting to break. I decided to go for a walk, get away from the camp and try to clear my head. I didn't ask my dad if he minded. I just grabbed my jacket and left. The air outside was cold. I walked deeper into the woods, following an old trail I'd seen earlier. The trees closed in around me, and the darkness seemed to pull me further in. The night was still oppressive. After a while, I began to feel like I was being watched, and after that, the feeling grew stronger, sharper. The woods were silent, but I kept walking, trying to ignore it, and just after that, I heard it. A low, guttural sound that sent a chill straight to my bones. It was like a scream, but twisted and distorted, something that shouldn't exist in the world. It echoed through the trees, bouncing off the trunks, growing louder until it felt like it was coming from all around me. I froze. My heart hammered in my chest. Everything about it was wrong. I didn't move, just standing there, but the noise didn't stop. It was still there, swirling around me, making my stomach churn. I turned my head slowly, trying to locate the source of the sound. And that's when I saw it. A figure. Tall, almost too tall, around 8-9 feet, exactly, thin, and twisted in a way that shouldn't have been possible. It was standing motionless in the shadows. I thought it was a man. And then, it let out that sound again, louder, more intense, like a howl mixed with something else, something worse. That's when I knew. It wasn't human. I don't even know how I made it back to the camp, but I ran like hell. And my mind was racing, flooded with 1,000 thoughts. But nothing could explain what I had seen, what I heard. I didn't look back, didn't care what was chasing me or following me or whatever the hell that thing was. All I cared about was getting the hell out of there. When I finally got back to the camp, I was shaking. My dad was sitting by the fire, half asleep. He looked up when I stumbled into the clearing, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong with you?" he asked. I couldn't even answer him. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, and my mind was still reeling. Just pack up. "We're leaving," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't question me. He just packed up the camp in silence. We left at first light, not a word spoken between us. I kept my head down, focused on the ground, trying not to look back. My dad kept pushing, kept asking what I'd seen out there. I stayed quiet the whole ride home, didn't say a damn word, but it wasn't attitude. I was scared, shaken. Whatever I saw out in those woods, it rattled something deep in me, something that's never fully settled since. I didn't talk about it with anyone. But as I grew older, I did some research, and that's when I founded the Wendigo. A creature from the old legends, something out of Native American folklore, a spirit of hunger. It haunts remote places, places like the Smoky Mountains, far from civilization. I don't know what I saw that night, but I'm certain it was the Wendigo. It's been years since that night, and I've never set foot in that part of the Smokies again.